do with writing, I am on it. Love reading. Anything to do with books or reading or writing, I am all about it. There are more opportunities than ever before for people to read great content and for people to write great content. There. Okay, so it's recording, it says. Okay, so I'll just put that down in the background. All right. So thanks for coming on this call with me.
No problem.
I'm a huge book nerd. And I studied English at U of T. I did English Lit, and I came out thinking I want to go into publishing. That's my thing. And
Right.
I ended up at a accounting textbook publisher. So it was nothing like I was imagining at all.
Right.
Right. So I said, on the side, I still want to be involved with literature or fiction or even nonfiction, but people who are writing and doing things in the publishing industry. Then 2008 happened, and even though we were publishing for something very specific that had a real audience that wasn't going anywhere, accounting professors, it still, affected our business too, and we had to arrange the way that we did publishing. And I saw the hit that authors took, and I said, okay, one day I want to do something that helps authors get themselves out there and markets what they're doing, because writing a book is an amazing feat. If you can really apply yourself and sit down and have the discipline to get your ideas on paper, that's a real skill. And there's an audience out there that wants it. It's just not in the same way of distribution as it used to be.
No, the whole landscape changed.
So it's tough out there for an author. So if there's anything I can do to help authors promote themselves, I'm all about it. So this is kind of what Leopard Lit is about. And I'm glad to see you're my first interview, and hopefully I can continue on as a series of interviews with local authors.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so tell me about you, Sandra.
Okay, so right now I'm a life coach. I do speaking gigs, and I have the book. I started Embrace Your Destiny, my coaching practice, at the end of 2009. And before that, I was working in the nonprofit sector. So I spent about 10 or over 10 years in the nonprofit sector. So for me, I knew like my people was sort of where I wanted to be. And the avenue for me to do it at that time was working for a nonprofit. And I just love the culture of nonprofit because it's so different from working in a corporate environment. So I had done corporate my first job out of university, and had to there was the strict dress code, and you had to wear a suit, you couldn't wear sandals, like all of that kind of stuff, right? And then when I went back to school to do my MBA, I ended up getting a part-time job at a nonprofit while I was doing and it changed my life because it was just such a different culture and such a different way of doing things, and to know that you weren't just working to work, right? You weren't just producing a widget or pushing paper, but there was actually that fulfillment to it, that you were helping somebody in some way, was just really shifted my whole perspective on what a career could be.
And how did you come from corporate Sandra to your nonprofit Sandra to I want to write a book Sandra?
It started with the death of my father, because my dad passed away in 2004.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And it was the event that really rocked my world. You know what I mean? Because I still say that I am a daddy's girl. You know what I mean? And he was everything to me. And I'm an only child, so I didn't even have siblings to help in the grieving process, and family issues came up, you know, like the things that happen when you lose somebody in your family. And through that, because I didn't feel like I had the coping mechanisms, because, you know, nobody teaches you how to deal with death, you know, how to grieve and how to move on from that. And I actually went to a therapist, and in that they suggested I go on antidepressants because they were like, well, clearly you're depressed. And I was like, well, yes.
Yeah, depressing situation.
Yeah, but it's not a chemical imbalance. You know what I mean? So, and I knew because I was in such a vulnerable place that if there was ever going to be a time in my life where I was going to become dependent on other things to get me through, then that would be the time. So I wasn't gung-ho about taking the antidepressants. I actually stopped going to the therapist as soon as she mentioned it because I was just not interested in any way to go that route. And it was that decision that really, because then it was, well, if I'm not going to take antidepressants and I'm not going to continue to go to the therapist, then how am I going to deal with all these emotions and everything that I was feeling? And because, much like you, I am a book nerd. I went, so somebody introduced me to the movie The Secret. I watched The Secret and had more questions than answers. And a friend of mine, you know, said, you know, you gotta read Esther Hicks. So I started reading Esther Hicks, and it just snowballed from there. So then I was reading all of the spiritual and self-help books, and all of that, and all the knowledge and the wisdom that these authors were providing me with helped me to really shift my perspective and to realize that just because it felt like the end of the world, it could actually be the end of the world in a good way. Which is why I wrote the book, because I felt like we all go through loss at some point in our lives, and there's always going to be that loss that is more detrimental to your life than others. And so to know that when you're experiencing that loss, when you're feeling those depressing feelings, when you're feeling that that isolation, that you're not alone in that it's all part of the process. And so that's why I wrote the book, was to really share my experiences and to just really look at the steps that I had taken to get me where I am today, which is nowhere close to the person I was even before my father passed away.
Why do you think it is that psychologists or psychiatrists are willing or ready to prescribe medication to people who are not chemically imbalanced but are just having a depressing moment in their lives? It's the outside circumstances that are causing, you know, understandable depression. Why would they want to prescribe a medication for that?
I think it's because we live in a society now of instant gratification. So if you say if you know, maybe she had said to me, well, this is going to take 6 months to a year to work out, I might have been like, well, come on, that's a bit extreme. So I think that for the average person, they want results and they want them immediately. So to take antidepressants is that quick fix, right? So you're going to feel better, but it's an artificial positive feeling, but it's still feeling better than you did without it.
Right. And then when you come off of the meds, do you still continue to feel better, or does it put you back into that depressive state?
That unknown is why I wasn't really okay with that as the solution to where I was at the time, because I knew that it wasn't, that pills weren't going to fix it, because like you say, like after taking, the situation was still going to be there, you know, all the heartache and everything else was still going to be a part of life. So it's how to really cope with it. That's what I was looking for, was really the tools to get me through it, not the quick fix.
So when you did your inner discovery on, you know, what tools you should use to not get over but deal with the depression that you were going through, what was the first thing that you found was really helpful for you?
I think for me, because in hindsight, what I realized is that my father's death sort of ripped the Band-Aid off a whole bunch of stuff that I was pretending that was okay, but wasn't okay just because life was, you know what I mean? Like life was comfortable. And so there was no need to look at some of these issues that were sort of bubbling under the surface. And then when my father passed away, it was like, okay, now there's that person there telling me that I'm great even when I doubt it. There's that person that makes me feel that sense of unconditional love anymore. So then all of the doubts that were always percolating back there had come to the surface. And so for me, it was really understanding where my weaknesses were, where my, like the lack of self-esteem and self-confidence, the constant need to please everybody else in my life without really thinking about what I wanted for my own life. Like all of that just came to the surface because my dad died. Because now, at the time when he passed, it was almost like I was ready to cash in my chips, if it makes any sense. So all of the favors that I had done for all my friends, all the good that I had done for other people, because I was in such a low spot in my life, I was now kind of like, okay, give it to me now. You know what I mean? Like now I'm the one in need and I need you guys to be there for me, which there was no contract. Nobody signed up for that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
It wasn't like it was a conscious agreement that I'm going to do this for you, knowing that if I ever need you, you're going to repay me. Like that's not what it was. And so when I didn't get what I had to get, then it just made me feel worse about things. So it was really just understanding that I had to be there for myself, but not in a victim way, but in a I am strong enough to deal with these things and I can't rely on other people to do things for me that I am not capable or willing to do for myself.
Right. So it sounds like that inner strength, you really have to somehow, tap into where your strength is from inside.
Inside. And then to realize that, you do have the ability to get through these things, and you've gotten through them in the past, but you just haven't really been conscious of it, right? Because we all go through, whether it was a breakup in high school, you always have like these things that you feel are the end of the world, and yet we survive them. And it's just really putting those kinds of things into perspective. And so for me, the big thing was just really being able to have a relationship with myself, because I don't think I had ever really thought about that before.
Now, do you think this is a problem only for women, or do men have a lot of this problem too?
I think that men suffer from the self-esteem issues and things like that as well. It just doesn't manifest in the same way, right? So a lot of times when you meet a guy and they're overly cocky and sure of themselves, a lot of times
which
like
most
that,
are.
but it's because they're trying to mask their own insecurities, right? So they doubt it themselves, so they're trying to convince you that this is who they are. Whereas for women, most of the time, when we lack that self-esteem and self-confidence, we tend to just, shrivel up and hide in the background. We don't play big at all, right? So it's the complete opposite.
Wow. So what principles did you put in your book that would really, help somebody who's struggling at the very moment that where you decided, okay, I'm not going to this psychologist anymore. I'm going to find a way to deal with it. What's in that book that would help you on that day?
So there's stuff in there about the importance of self-love, and it talks about taking responsibility for your actions, because I think once we realize that where we are today is based on seeds we've been planting, and it's not that it's a stroke of bad luck or anybody's conspiring against you, but we're creating our future every day. And so if you're not happy with the life you're living, that's a reflection of the things you've done. There's no one else to blame for your unhappiness but yourself. And I think that understanding alone has been so huge, is that nobody's making you feel bad. No one's making you feel unworthy. That's all coming from you. And so once you realize that, then you can focus on doing the inner work to really create the life that you want. You know what I mean? And stop the whole self-doubt and not feeling sure and, overthinking things, like all of those things are things that I talk about in the book. And I think some of the big lessons that I talk about in there are, the ability to forgive. right? Because forgiveness is such a huge thing.
Huge.
And,
I hold a grudge, and I will hold it when I'm ready for a long time, years, if possible.
And the thing is that, it's okay to forgive, but that doesn't mean you have to forget.
Right.
Right? And for me, that took a lot to understand. Because for me, for a long time, if I was forgiving you, then it meant that I had to pretend it never happened, which is impossible. And it's really just about understanding that you can forgive, and that doesn't condone the things that they've done. But it also doesn't mean that because you forgive, you leave yourself vulnerable to allowing those people to do the same things to you again. Right? You have to learn from those experiences. And if you want new experiences, then you have to do things differently, which means you have to approach those people in a different way, and you have to set boundaries for yourself and say no to things sometimes, and know
big one
that it's okay. And I remember I met this woman and we were talking, and she said to me, sometimes no is a complete sentence. And I was like, that is an awesome and, a tattoo with it or something, just to know that, you don't have to justify it. And I think that especially as women, a friend asks you for a favor and you don't want to do it, and you're like, oh no, but it's because, and now you're making up stories for why you don't do it, because you don't just want to say, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I know that for me, there have been times in my past where I've done things, like I said, you do things for people, and you may not be conscious that you have expectations of the fact that, you played Superwoman and you did all these fantastic things, and they're going to worship the ground you walk on because you've done all these great things. And when it doesn't happen, resentment comes in, right? Because it's like, oh, after everything I did for you, you can't be there for me. And it's really being able to, if you can't do it without expectation, then you shouldn't do it at all.
Wow, that's awesome. That's powerful. That's awesome. And you said something. That's been a big one for me too, I notice, and especially in business when I'm a freelancer, a freelance marketing agent. I help people market themselves better. And a big one, like after my first year in, was realizing I don't have to work with everyone.
No.
And I can say no to potential clients because sometimes it's not worth it. And there's certain warning signs that come to you in the beginning. And, that continue. People don't magically change when you decide to work with them. They're still that person.
Yeah, and the warning signs, and sometimes it's that whole desire to make money, right? Because as an entrepreneur, right, there is no steady paycheck anymore. So now and sometimes there is that pressure to be like, well, I need to pay my rent. So I am going to say yes, even though my gut is telling me that this one is not the one.
Right.
But that money, that short term, if they do pay you, because a lot of times those difficult clients
I didn't want to say it, but that's what I'm talking about, money. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So you did it because you want the money.
Yes.
But same clients that are causing the headache are the ones who are holding onto it.
Right.
So you put yourself through all that heartache, aggravation, and there's still a big goose egg in your account. So what was the point?
What was the point? And you know what? That goes for relationships too.
Yes.
That goes for relationships too. You meet the guy and he's there are certain things you don't like about it, but you take it overall and you think, okay, well, I'm over 30 and I want to get married by here and I want to have kids by here. And if I do the, chart of it all, then I need to be engaged last year. So, on the whole, I do the cost benefit analysis and in the end, it's not worth it because in 5 years, the relationship falls apart for the exact same reasons that you saw from the beginning.
Yeah, 6 weeks in.
Right. So who's to blame? You. It's the same guy.
Yes.
So,
but you meet the people who, their job sucks. They're never happy in their relationship, and it's always about everybody else. But for me, and so sometimes when I have clients who have that issue, it's like, well, hang on a second. What's the common denominator here in your job, in your relationships, in your issues with your family? The only common denominator is you.
Right.
So is it that okay, so if you are attracting all these crazy people into your life, that still says something about what energy you're putting out there.
Right.
And it could be that you're the crazy one.
Right.
Because you have your own issues and you haven't dealt with them. So now every relationship that you're in, whether it's work, friend, or whatever,
Right.
you're repeating these lessons because you still haven't learned that where you need to adjust or tweak in order to not have those same encounters again.
Exactly. So, okay. So you and I have both seen it of people in the world, women especially. I know women because they're my friends, right? I hang out with a lot of women. And this is something they do, and I've even recognized it myself years after the fact of, okay, I was in this cycle for a time, and then at some point, you know, my mindset changed, and therefore my life changed.
Yeah.
So what do you do as a coach, or what do you recommend that people do to get out of the cycle? So they've recognized now, yeah, everybody in my life is crazy, and I don't like it, but what do they do? What's the next step?
The next step is to really identify where those, like what it is that's causing those repeated cycles, right? And a lot of times it comes down to our belief system, right? And so you have beliefs that have, you know, your parents passed down to you, right? And you don't question it because mom and dad said that this is the way things are. So you take it as the truth and you go into the world with that belief. And there are some beliefs, like especially around money and things like that, that aren't serving us, right? Like the whole, you know, money doesn't grow on trees and money's hard to get by and you have to like work hard to get, like all of these things, they don't serve us, but you can let go of them. You can reprogram your mind to think in a different way, and that's the only way that you're going to really have long-term enduring change in your life, is when you can really shift that mindset and rewire the way your mind thinks about certain things, right? You know, when you have the fear of dying alone, right? And so now there's that desperation to be in a relationship, and now you're taking Tom, Dick, and Harry out on dates and doing all these things, and because you don't want to be alone, because now all your friends are getting married and all the rest of it. But if you go into these dates and these relationships going, you know what, if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be good because I'm in love with my own damn self and it's going to be all right. Then things start to change. And so now the men that you meet, if they really want to be with you, they're going to work hard because now they have to impress you to show you why they should be a part of your life, because you're no longer seething of desperation.
Right. Exactly.
Right? So it's really about, really a mindset and really believing that you deserve better and that you can get it, that it's not that, you know, your goals and aspirations just aren't things that you stick on a vision board and look at for the next 20 years, but you can actually make them a reality. And it's okay to dream big and want big things for your life, and it's not selfish or it's not arrogant or conceited to want better and bigger for your life, that it's okay.
And also, we need to take the sting out of those words, because when a man does it or a wealthy person does it, we don't look at them and say, well, it's so terrible that they're conceited. I'm sure they would rather have no money and not be conceited at all. No, they wouldn't.
No. Right? And even the whole idea of money is the root of all evil. You can do good things with money. And I'm a big Wayne Dyer fan. And he talked about the fact that money is a magnifier of who you already are. So if you are an idiot, right? If you're a jerk and you get lots of money, then it's just going to make you a bigger jerk, right? You can do bigger things with that money now, right? But if you're a good person, if you're a loving person, if you are a caring person, you're just going to be able to do more of that with your money. So I think that we have to really, self-awareness is the key, right? Because once you know who you are, then you know where you can go. You know what you're capable of. You know what you deserve and what you want.
So how does one embrace your destiny? What does that mean to you?
To me, it was just really letting go of the idea of living my life for other people, whether it was pleasing my parents or my friend. Like, it was just that none of that matters anymore. If I'm not happy, then it doesn't make sense. And so for me, it was almost giving myself permission to be selfish. Do you know what I mean? Like, I got to do me because I can't leave that to anybody else to do. And I think that that was the big lesson when my dad passed away, is that I can't wait for somebody to rescue me. I need to be able to have my cape stored in the back, that if I need to get it out, I'm going to do it.
So why embrace your destiny? Why did you pick that? I don't know if that picked up on it or not, but just go over it quickly. Again,
okay.
In case.
So embracing your destiny is really about...
Shoot. Sorry.
It's about really finding your calling, finding your path and pursuing it, not allowing other people to dictate where your future is going to carry you.
Mm-hmm. And where can people pick up the book? On Amazon and where else?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Chapters, Indigo.
And you said locally?
Oh, Knowledge Bookstore as well, locally.
Knowledge Bookstore in Brampton, right?
In Brampton, yes.
Brampton, right. And then, what was my third question for you?
Books? Was it other books?
Yeah, other books. Books in your future? Are you writing? Are you working on anything?
I'm working on a book, yes, now.
Yes. And it's
more of a how-to on how to achieve your goals and really make them happen.
Nice. And if people want to, beyond books, they love reading what you've written, they want to actually talk to you in person and get your expertise as a coach, where do they find you?
www.embraceyourdestiny.ca.
Nice. And what are the cards behind you, or the writing on the wall? What do you have there? Looks cool.
Okay, so there are 2 affirmation cards. Okay. It's funny, so I'll tell you a quick story before I tell you what they say on the wall. Okay. When I first started trying to feel better about myself, Louise Hay talks about affirmations all the time. So I became a real affirmations junkie. So 5 years ago, this whole wall would have been covered with sticky notes and stuff. They were in the bathroom, they were in the bedroom. It was almost like wallpaper. And I think I started doing it when my boyfriend was in India somewhere or something. And so he came back and he's like, what the hell is going on?
She's come undone.
Yeah, exactly. And so the bathroom ones didn't last very long because, hot showers and everything. But then I started writing in dry erase marker, which really made him think that I had gone off deep. I had to actually show him that it would rub off because he's like, what is wrong with you? But anyway, affirmations are great. And even though he used to tease me about them and read them out loud to himself and kind of giggle, because he's an entrepreneur as well, and he, we all go through struggles and everything. Yes. So sometimes we'd have conversations and then he'd actually recite some of them.
Wow, good. That's good.
So it works even when they're not up there for you.
Yes.
So I'm thinking that maybe I'll do some on, the joys of laundry and washing. See how that works. I'll let you know. Right? But so the first one says, I live in a divinely inspired universe. I have nothing to fear. I trust in myself, and when I do so, I trust in the very wisdom that created me. And then the second one says, I am a creation of God, and I am divine. I've forgotten this, but now I'm not accepting excuses. I'm going to stop fooling myself and work at being all that I was destined to be.
And you feel that they work, like when you repeat it to yourself.
They do, and sometimes it's just nice to, like when you're not having the best day, to read that kind of stuff, right? Just to remind you of the power within, right? Which is, I think, why that Marianne Williamson quote about our greatest fear, that quote is just so powerful because it's the truth, right? Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure, because if we are powerful beyond measure and we're living a mediocre life right now, then what are we doing, right? So then again, it puts the responsibility back on ourselves to...
Our fault.
Yeah.
Yes.
To stop fooling around and make it happen.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that your boyfriend is an entrepreneur too and understands the life that you are grinding together.
Well, it's funny because when I first met him, I was in my second year of the MBA program. And I remember on our first date, he was like, so, what's the plan after you graduate? And at that point in my life, the answer was get a job, right? And even then, he was an entrepreneur. So he was looking at me like I sprouted a third head. Because he was like, what do you mean? He's like, why would you go to business school to work for somebody else? He's like, that makes no sense because now you would have the knowledge and the skills to build your own. But at that point in my life, I didn't have any idea what a business would look like for me or what I would want to do. So I wasn't even entertaining those kinds of thoughts at that point. I thought he was nuts.
Did you find that the MBA program has helped you now with your own business or not?
It helps in understanding things. And it's funny because in the program, they say that if you want to sort of stop the entrepreneurial flame within you, that getting your MBA is the best way to do it because it teaches you about analyzing things. And so you can actually overanalyze and talk yourself out of doing things because you start thinking about all the things that could go wrong, right? But it's about using that knowledge and not, because the thing is that if you're looking for excuses, you're always going to find them. And so whether you've got an MBA or whatever, if you're looking for a reason not to do it, you'll find it. So it's about not really, if you're really feeling called to do something, not really paying attention to that or being conscious that those things exist, but not allowing that to stop you.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a statement right there about everything in life. You could talk yourself out of it if you think about it too long. But yeah, I think that's incredible, and I think it's so important too when you are an entrepreneur and you are taking leaps of faith every day. It's not a safe career choice at all.
No, it's not for the weak of heart.
No, but when you have a partner that understands that, it makes your life 10 times easier. And
yes,
I'm very glad my boyfriend understands my life too. He has, the 9-to-5 job, but he has been an entrepreneur. So he's, my biggest cheerleader and understands the struggle. And when I'm up late at night, he's up late at night with me too, working. I'll work and he'll just sit next to me and do his own thing. So thank you so much for this interview. It was awesome. What else should I know?
What else should you know?
About Embrace Your Destiny, the book.
Audiobook is coming. Because so Sam, my boyfriend, is he owns an independent record label and studio in Brampton.
Okay, nice.
So when I finished writing the book, he brought it to me. He asked me when I was going to do the audiobook, and I hadn't even really thought about it, but why wouldn't I do the audiobook when I have access to a studio to do the audiobook?
Right.
So I recorded it all and just waiting for him to master it. I don't think it needs to be mixed because I'm not singing, but just clean it up a little bit, and that'll be ready hopefully this year.
Okay, cool.
So for the people who just want to listen to me in their car or whatever, they can listen that way too.
And they're doing their dishes and the laundry.
The laundry, yeah.
Listen to it in your ears right here.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's incredible. Thank you so much for tonight. You are the first. You are so brave, and I love how, you really you're out there to market yourself, and it makes a difference. Yeah,
because especially if you're gonna self-publish, you have to be willing to be your own biggest cheerleader and put yourself out there and be okay with that. Because otherwise you might as well try and do it the traditional publishing way and have somebody market it for you. Prepare to do the work.
Prepared to do the work. Well, thanks, Sandra. I hope you have a great evening. I hope to run into you one of these days or see you. We have to do
face to face.
We have to meet for a coffee one of these days in the neighborhood. Sure. Yeah. I'll see you around. Cool. Rockwood.
Yes. Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a great night. I'll see you.